At 2 a.m., Marcus Hill, a black single dad, never expected to see his boss, the woman who had made his life miserable for 3 years, standing drunk and broken at his door. She was powerful, untouchable, and now she was begging for help. Marcus had every reason to turn away. He had a daughter sleeping in the next room, a life already stretched thin. But one decision that night, one act of kindness he didn't owe her, would quietly change everything. Because the next morning, she didn't pretend to forget. Marcus Hill's phone buzzed against the nightstand for the 7th time in 20 minutes. He lay in the dark of his South Chicago apartment, staring at the ceiling, counting the cracks he'd memorized over 3 years of restless nights. The radiator clanked. Wind rattled the window. Naomi's breathing came soft and steady from the room next door. The phone buzzed again. Marcus reached for it with the slow resignation of a man who already knew he wouldn't like what he'd find. 7 missed calls. All from the same number. Victoria Winters, his boss. The woman who had, for the past 3 years, made every workday feel like walking barefoot on broken glass. The CEO of Winters Consulting Group, who reviewed his time cards like a forensic accountant, who questioned every creative choice, who once sent back a presentation 17 times because the font lacked authority. The screen lit up again. This time, a text. "Please help. I'm in trouble." Marcus sat up. His daughter's nightlight cast shadows across the hallway. He could hear her stuffed rabbit's music box winding down from when she'd fallen asleep, clutching it. He typed back. "What kind of trouble?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Downtown. Velvet Noir. They won't let me leave." Marcus closed his eyes. Every fiber of his exhausted body screamed at him to put the phone down, to protect what little peace he'd managed to carve out for himself and Naomi, to remember every dismissive comment, every impossible deadline, every time Victoria had made him feel small. She had power, resources. A dozen people she could call who owed her favors or feared her enough to come running. Why him? He looked at the photo on his nightstand. Naomi at Navy Pier last summer, cotton candy bigger than her face, smile wider than the lake behind her. He'd taken 3 buses to get there, spent money he shouldn't have, but she'd laughed so hard she got hiccups. That's what mattered. Keeping her world safe. Keeping his own boundaries intact. The phone buzzed one more time. "Never mind. I shouldn't have called." Marcus read those words 3 times. There was something in them, not manipulation, but defeat. A white flag from someone who didn't know how to surrender. He thought about the man his own father had been. Flawed, absent more than present. But the lessons he'd left behind were clear. You help people, even when they don't deserve it, especially then. Marcus stood up, grabbed his jacket, and wrote a note for Mrs. Chen next door in case Naomi woke up. He told himself he was doing this for his own conscience, not for Victoria Winters. He almost believed it. The Velvet Noir Lounge occupied the corner of a building that probably cost more than Marcus would earn in his lifetime. Glass doors, soft purple lighting, the kind of place where drinks had names like Midnight Soliloquy and cost $30. Marcus had never been inside. He'd walked past it 100 times on his way to the train, always with his head down, always moving. Tonight, he pushed through the doors. The bartender looked up a young guy with an undercut and a skeptical expression that suggested he'd already made decisions about what kind of person Marcus was. "We're closing," he said. "I'm here for Victoria Winters." The skepticism shifted to something closer to relief. "Thank God. She's in the back booth. Won't give us her keys, won't call a car, won't leave. We've got a private event in the morning. And look, just get her out of here, okay?" Marcus found her in the corner, surrounded by empty cocktail glasses arranged in a perfect line. Her suit jacket hung off the back of the booth. Her hair, usually pulled into a severe bun, fell loose around her shoulders. She was staring at something on her phone with the fixed intensity of someone trying to make the world stop spinning. She looked up when his shadow fell across the table. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "You came," she said finally. "You called." Marcus stayed standing. "What happened?" Victoria laughed a brittle sound. "Anniversary." "Of sorts." "Of what?" She didn't answer. Just slid her phone across the table. The screen showed a photo of a woman, older, elegant, with Victoria's eyes and sharper cheekbones. The date stamp read 15 years ago. "My mother," Victoria said. "She died today. 15 years ago today. Every year I think it'll hurt less. Every year I'm wrong." Marcus had prepared himself for a dozen scenarios on the drive over. A business deal gone wrong. A public scandal. Something that fit the Victoria he knew, controlled, calculating, armored. Not this. Not grief. He sat down across from her. "The bartender said you won't give them your keys. Because I'm not an idiot. I know I can't drive." She gestured vaguely toward the bar. "But everyone here recognizes me. If I call a car and someone takes a photo, if this gets out, you care that much what people think? I care that much about my company." Victoria's eyes focused on him with sudden sharpness. "And you should too. Your job is attached to my reputation." There it was. The edge he recognized. The woman who'd made him rewrite client proposals until 2 a.m. because she sensed weakness in his word choices. Marcus stood up. "I'll take you home." "Why?" The question came out raw. "You hate me." "I know you hate me. I don't know you well enough to hate you." Marcus held out his hand. "Come on. Before they call someone who'll make this everyone's problem." Victoria looked at his hand for a long moment. Then she took it. As they walked toward the door, Marcus noticed a man in an expensive suit watching from the bar. The man raised his glass slightly, a gesture that might have been acknowledgement or judgment, or both. Marcus didn't recognize him. But something about the man's measured gaze suggested he'd just filed away this moment for future reference. Outside, the January wind cut through the street like a blade. Victoria stumbled on the curb, and Marcus steadied her without comment. She pulled away quickly, too quickly, but then seemed to realize she needed the support and let his hand remain on her elbow. "Where's your car?" she asked. "Don't have one." "We're taking the train, then a taxi." Victoria stopped walking. "The train? Unless you've got a better idea at 2:30 in the morning." She didn't. So they walked. The Red Line train car was nearly empty. A man slept across 3 seats at the far end. 2 nurses in scrubs sat near the door, speaking quietly in Spanish. The fluorescent lights hummed with the particular loneliness of late-night public transit. Victoria sat by the window, watching the tunnel walls blur past. Marcus sat beside her, maintaining exactly 12 inches of distance. For 10 minutes, neither spoke. Then Victoria said, "You have a daughter." It wasn't a question. Marcus had Naomi's school photo taped to his cubicle wall, the one thing he'd insisted on keeping, despite Victoria's minimize personal distractions policy. "Naomi." "She's 8. Just the 2 of you?" "Just the 2 of us." Marcus kept his eyes on the tunnel. Her mother left when Naomi was 6 months old. Decided she wasn't cut out for the whole family thing. Victoria turned to look at him. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. We're good. We have a routine. Thursday is pizza night. Saturday mornings we do pancakes. She beats me at checkers every single time, and I'm pretty sure she's not even cheating. You sound happy." "I am." Marcus met her eyes. "Most days." The train lurched around a curve. Victoria gripped the pole, and Marcus noticed her hand shaking. "Why are you helping me?" she asked quietly. Marcus thought about lying, about giving her an easy answer that would let them both maintain their roles, employee and employer, distant and transactional. Instead, he told the truth, because it's the right thing to do. Because somebody helped me once when they didn't have to, and I remember what that meant. Because you're a person, and people shouldn't be left alone when they're hurting. He paused. "Even people who make my life difficult?" Victoria's laugh was soft, almost inaudible over the train's rattle. I do make your life difficult. You do. I'm not sure why. I am. Marcus watched the darkness outside the window. I'm good at my job. I come up with ideas that work. And you can't stand that someone you don't respect keeps proving themselves right. The train slowed into the next station. The doors opened. No one got on. That's not. Victoria started, then stopped. Her shoulders dropped. That's exactly it. The admission hung between them like something fragile. They rode the rest of the way in silence, but it was a different kind of quiet now. Less hostile, more thoughtful. When they emerged from the station, Victoria gave the taxi driver an address Marcus recognized from company letterhead. The Penthouse District, where the city's skyline looked like a jeweler's display case. He'd never been north of River North, except to clean his grandmother's church on Sundays. You don't have to come up, Victoria said as the taxi pulled to the curb. Yes, I do. Marcus paid the driver before she could argue. I'm making sure you get inside safely. Then I'll leave. Victoria didn't protest. She simply led him into a building where the doorman knew her by name, and the elevator had a keycard reader for the top floor. The penthouse was exactly what Marcus expected, and nothing like he imagined. The space was enormous, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. Furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Art on the walls that probably cost more than a car. Everything was white or gray or steel. Everything was perfect. Everything was empty. No books on the coffee table. No mail on the counter. No shoes kicked off by the door or jacket thrown over a chair. The place looked like a showroom for a life no one actually lived. Victoria dropped her purse on the kitchen island and walked straight to the bar cart, reaching for a bottle. That's probably not a good idea, Marcus said gently. Her hand froze. For a moment he thought she'd argue. Then she pulled back, gripping the counter instead. I don't know how to do this, she said. Do what? This. She gestured vaguely at the space around her. Be here. Be alone with myself. I work 80 hours a week because when I stop working, all I have is... She trailed off. Marcus looked around the apartment again. This time he saw what wasn't there. No photographs, no personal touches. Nothing that suggested anyone lived here except the ghost of someone who'd forgotten how to live. Then he saw it, a single frame on the bookshelf, half hidden behind a design magazine. The same photo from her phone. Victoria and her mother, younger, laughing at something off camera. The only proof that Victoria Winters had once been someone's daughter. Someone's joy. You miss her, Marcus said. Victoria followed his gaze to the photo. Her face crumpled for just a second before she caught herself, rebuilt the walls. Every day. Her voice was barely audible. She was the only person who saw me as more than what I could achieve. Who loved me even when I was difficult. Even when I was wrong. She sounds like a good mother. She was the best. Victoria wiped her eyes quickly, angrily, and I became exactly what she didn't want me to be. Cold, driven, alone. Marcus wanted to argue, to offer comfort, to say something that would make this moment less painful. But he'd learned from Naomi that sometimes the kindest thing you could do was simply witness someone's hurt without trying to fix it. So he stood there, said nothing, and let Victoria Winters cry. After a while, she straightened, smoothing her hair back with shaking hands. I should let you go. It's late. Your daughter. Victoria's phone rang. The name on the screen read, Richard Townsend. All the blood drained from Victoria's face. Oh God, Victoria whispered. Oh God, no, not tonight. Who is he? Marcus asked. Richard Townsend, CEO of Townsend Industries. Our largest client, worth 40% of our annual revenue. Victoria stared at the ringing phone like it was a live grenade. He was at the bar. I saw him when we left. He must have. She sank onto the couch, her professional composure shattering. The phone kept ringing. He's going to fire us. He's going to tell everyone what he saw. My board will demand I step down. The company my mother helped me build will. Marcus picked up the phone. Victoria's eyes went wide. Mr. Townsend, Marcus said calmly. This is Marcus Hill, Victoria's senior strategist. How can I help you this evening? There was a pause on the other end. Then, a cultured voice said, I was hoping to speak with Miss Winters directly. Miss Winters is indisposed at the moment. We've been working late on the quarterly projections for your account. You know how she is about the details. Marcus kept his voice steady, professional. Is there something urgent I can assist with? Another pause. I saw her at the Velvet Noir earlier. She seemed unwell. Yes, sir. Personal matter. Family anniversary. I'm sure you understand how those can be. Marcus watched Victoria's face. She'd gone completely still. I drove her home to make sure she was safe. That's what team members do. I see. The silence stretched. And the projections you mentioned? On track for delivery Friday, as scheduled. Victoria actually wanted to call you first thing Monday to walk through the new verticals we're proposing. Unless you'd prefer an earlier meeting? Marcus heard papers shuffling. Friday's fine. And Mr. Hill? Yes, sir. Tell Victoria I appreciate people who take care of their own. That matters more than most things in business. The line went dead. Marcus set the phone down carefully. Victoria was staring at him like he'd just pulled her back from the edge of a cliff. What did you do? She whispered. I answered your phone. Kept a client happy. Standard Tuesday night. Marcus checked his watch. Wednesday morning. Technically. You lied to him. I told him we were working late. We are. I told him you'd call Monday. You will. Marcus met her eyes. And I told him, you have people who care about you. That part's negotiable. Victoria stood up slowly, like someone testing whether the ground would hold. You just saved my career. I answered a phone call. Marcus. Her voice cracked. You saved my career. After everything I've done to you. Every impossible deadline, every criticism. Every time I made you feel like you weren't enough. Yeah. Marcus picked up his jacket. All of that happened, and tomorrow we'll still have to figure out what comes next. But tonight, you needed help. So I helped. He walked toward the door. Victoria followed. Why? She asked again. Really? Why? Marcus thought about Naomi's face when he'd come home, defeated after particularly brutal days at work. How she'd hug him and say, You're still the best dad ever. How she believed the best in people, even when people didn't deserve it. Because my daughter is watching how I move through the world, he said finally. And I want her to see that kindness matters. Even when it's hard. Especially then. He opened the door. Victoria caught his arm. The projections you mentioned. We don't actually have projections due Friday. I know. But we do now. Marcus smiled slightly. See you Monday, Miss Winters. He left her standing in the doorway of her cold, empty penthouse, wearing yesterday's makeup and tomorrow's questions. On the train ride home, Marcus wondered if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life, or the best decision. Marcus arrived at Winters Consulting Group at 8:47 a.m. Monday morning, carrying his usual lunch in a paper bag and expecting nothing to have changed. 3 years of working for Victoria had taught him a hard lesson. Vulnerability had a short half-life in the corporate world. By Monday, she'd have rebuilt her walls, restructured her defenses, and convinced herself that Friday night had been an aberration that everyone should politely forget. He'd prepared himself for the reset, for things to return to exactly how they'd been. He was wrong. At 9:03, Victoria Winters walked past his cubicle carrying 2 cups of coffee. She set one on his desk without breaking stride, then kept walking toward her office. Marcus stared at the cup. It was from the Good Place 2 blocks over, not the office machine. Made with oat milk, 1 sugar. exactly how he took it, though he'd never mentioned his preference to anyone at work. She'd remembered. Around him, the office buzzed with barely concealed shock. Jennifer from accounting mouthed, "What the hell?" From across the row. David, who'd worked here for 7 years, literally stopped mid-sentence in his phone call. Nobody got personal coffee from Victoria Winters. Nobody got acknowledgement before 10 a.m. And nobody, absolutely nobody, got treated like their preferences mattered. At 9:45, Victoria's assistant appeared at his desk. "Miss Winters would like to see you in her office." Here it comes, Marcus thought. The real conversation. The one where she thanks him for his discretion and reminds him that what happened stays between them. Maybe there'd be a small bonus. A gift card. Something transactional to even the scales. He picked up his coffee and followed. Victoria's office occupied the corner of the building, all glass and steel, and a view that made people forget what they'd come to say. She stood by the window, her back to the door, wearing a navy suit that looked like armor. "Close the door," she said quietly. Marcus did. She turned to face him. Without her usual severe bun, with her hair pulled into a softer style, she looked younger, more uncertain. "I didn't forget," she said. Marcus waited. "I thought about pretending I did. It would be easier, for both of us." She walked to her desk, picked up a folder. "I could let you believe Friday night was a temporary lapse in judgment, that Monday morning erases everything, that we go back to exactly how things were, but I'd be lying. And I'm tired of lying. Especially to myself." Victoria held out the folder. "This is your personnel file. I've been reviewing it all weekend." Marcus's stomach dropped. This was it. The professional thank you followed by a strategic transfer to a different department. A way to create distance while maintaining deniability. "I've been a terrible boss to you," Victoria continued. "Not just difficult, terrible. I've questioned your work when it was excellent. I've given credit for your ideas to others. I've created impossible standards because—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Because you reminded me of everything I'd given up to build this company. You have a life outside these walls. A daughter who loves you, a sense of purpose that doesn't require a title or a corner office." Marcus said nothing. He'd learned that powerful people often needed to confess before they could change. "I was jealous," Victoria said simply, "and I punished you for having what I couldn't figure out how to build for myself." She opened the folder. Inside was a promotion letter. Senior Creative Director. Immediate start date. 28% salary increase. Flexible scheduling. Your own team. Victoria set it on the desk between them. "And before you think this is payment for Friday night, it's not. This is what you should have had a year ago." Based purely on merit. Marcus picked up the letter, read it twice. The terms were better than he'd dared to imagine. The flexibility meant he could pick Naomi up from school, be at her soccer games, stop choosing between his career and his daughter. "There's no catch?" he asked. "There's a condition." Victoria met his eyes. "I need help, not with work, with—" She gestured vaguely at herself. "This. Learning how to be a person again. I don't want a therapist. I don't want a life coach. I want someone who'll be honest when I'm being impossible. Who'll remind me that success means nothing if you're building it on other people's suffering. You want me to fix you? No. I want you to hold me accountable." Victoria's voice was steady. "You don't owe me that. You don't owe me anything. But I'm asking anyway." Marcus thought about all the late nights, the unnecessary criticism, the 3 years of feeling invisible in his own career. He thought about Naomi asking why he always looked so tired. About the dreams he'd deferred because someone else's insecurity had blocked his path. Then he thought about Victoria standing in that empty penthouse, surrounded by everything success could buy and nothing that mattered. About her mother's photo, about the woman she used to be before grief and ambition had hollowed her out. "Okay," he said. Victoria blinked. "Okay?" On one condition of my own. Marcus set the folder down. You start seeing a real therapist. Someone qualified to help you process what you're carrying. I'm not equipped for that, and it's not fair to either of us if you expect me to be. Victoria nodded slowly. That's reasonable. And you have dinner with me and Naomi. Once a month. Nothing formal. Just pizza and a movie. See what normal looks like. Why would you want that? Because, Marcus said carefully, you asked me Friday night why I was helping you. Victoria looked at him for a long moment. Then she extended her hand. They shook on it, employer and employee, adversary and unexpected ally, two people making a fragile agreement to try something different. Thank you, Victoria said quietly. Marcus finished his coffee. It was perfect. 2 weeks later, Marcus was in his new office, a real office with a door and a window and space to think when Victoria knocked. Got a minute? She asked. Sure. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. It felt strange having her on the other side of the power dynamic. Victoria sat down, but she didn't speak immediately. She studied the photos on his desk. Naomi at her third-grade graduation. The two of them at a Cubs game, both wearing oversized hats, a crayon drawing labeled Best Dad in wobbly letters. You're a good father, Victoria said finally. I try to be. I wanted children once. When I was younger. Before I decided that success required sacrifice. She traced a finger along the edge of his desk. My mother used to say, Victoria, you can have everything, but you can't have it all at once. Life has seasons. I thought she was wrong. Thought I was smarter, more capable. What changed? She died. And I threw myself into work because it was the only thing that didn't hurt. Built the company into something that would make her proud. Except, Victoria's voice cracked. She wouldn't be proud. She'd be heartbroken at what I became. Marcus waited. I started therapy. Like you suggested. Victoria looked up at him. First session, the therapist asked me who I was outside of my job title. I couldn't answer. Sat there for 20 minutes, trying to think of a single defining characteristic that wasn't related to Winter's consulting group. What did you come up with? Lonely. That's the only word I could find. She smiled bitterly. CEO of a successful company. Penthouse apartment. More money than I'll ever spend. And the most honest description of myself is lonely. So what are you going to do about it? Marcus asked. That's why I'm here. Victoria pulled out an envelope. I've been reviewing our clients, particularly Richard Townsend. Marcus tensed. Did something happen? The opposite. He sent a personal letter to the board praising our team's professionalism and specifically mentioning you. Said he appreciated the way we handled sensitive situations with discretion and care. Victoria set the envelope on the desk. You made an impression. He wants you leading the expansion of his account. That's great? It is. But it made me think about that night. About what you did. Victoria leaned forward. You protected me when you had every reason to let me fail. When my own decisions could have destroyed everything. And you did it without expecting anything in return. I told you why. Because your daughter is watching. Because kindness matters. I know, Victoria interrupted gently. But I never told you why I called you that night. Why you, specifically, when I had dozens of other options. Marcus waited. Because I knew you'd come. Even after everything I'd done to you, I knew you were the kind of person who shows up. She looked away. And I hated myself for that. For treating you terribly and still knowing I could count on your decency. That's the worst kind of exploitation. So this promotion is what you earned. Nothing more, nothing less. Victoria stood. But I wanted you to know that I see it now. The person I became. The damage I did because I was too broken to admit I needed help. She walked to the door, then paused. Naomi invited me to her soccer game this Saturday. Is that offer still open? Marcus smiled. She's been practicing her corner kicks all week. Fair warning, she's better than most of the boys on the team, and she's not quiet about it. Good. The world needs more girls who take up space. Victoria's hand rested on the doorframe. Marcus, I'm going to get better. At this. At being human. It won't happen overnight, and I'll probably mess up a lot, but I'm trying. That's all anyone can do, Marcus said. After she left, Marcus opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten note from Richard Townsend, and a separate letter from Victoria's board of directors, formally apologizing for any challenges in your working relationship with Miss Winters and noting his exceptional contributions to the firm's reputation and success. It wasn't just an acknowledgement. It was a paper trail. Protection against any future retaliation, any claim that his promotion was favoritism rather than merit. Victoria had gone out of her way to make sure he was safe. Marcus looked at Naomi's crayon drawing. The stick figure version of him had a cape. Maybe heroes didn't always wear capes, he thought. Maybe sometimes they just showed up at 2 a.m. and answered a phone call. Saturday morning, Naomi woke Marcus up at 6:47 a.m. by jumping on his bed. Is she really coming, your boss lady? To my game? Her name is Victoria, and yes, she's really coming. Marcus caught his daughter mid-bounce. But you need to eat breakfast first. And put on your uniform. And maybe calm down a little. I can't calm down. Nobody's boss ever comes to my games. Jessica's mom always talks about how important her dad is, but does he come to games? No, but your boss is coming to my game, so obviously you're more important. Naomi's logic was unassailable in her own mind. Marcus helped her into her uniform red jersey, number 7, last name Hill printed across the back in letters that seemed too big for her small frame. She looked at herself in the mirror and flexed. I look awesome. You look ready to dominate, Marcus agreed. They arrived at the field early. Marcus set up their folding chairs on the sideline while Naomi joined her team for warm-ups. She waved at him every 30 seconds, just to make sure he was still watching. He was always watching. At 9:23, a Tesla pulled into the parking lot. Victoria emerged wearing jeans, actual jeans, and a sweater that looked like something a normal person might own. Her hair was in a ponytail, no makeup, no armor. She looked terrified. You made it, Marcus said. I almost turned around 3 times. Victoria clutched a coffee cup like a life preserver. I don't know how to do this. Kids, soccer, normal Saturday things. You just watch and cheer. Naomi does the rest. Naomi spotted Victoria and came sprinting over, cleats kicking up dirt. You're here. You're really here. She skidded to a stop 3 feet away, suddenly shy. Hi. I'm Naomi. Nothing bad, I hope, Victoria said carefully. Nah. Just that you're really smart, but you work too much. Naomi studied her with the unblinking intensity of children who haven't learned to hide their assessments. Daddy says you're learning how to be happy. Is that true? Victoria's eyes widened. Marcus started to intervene, but Victoria held up a hand. That's very true, she told Naomi seriously. Your dad is helping me figure it out. Cool. You should eat more ice cream. That helps too. Naomi glanced back at her team. I gotta go. Watch number 12 on the other team. She's really good, but I'm faster. She ran back to the field, leaving Victoria and Marcus in bemused silence. She's... Victoria searched for words. A lot, Marcus finished. But she's mine. They sat down to watch the game. Naomi was right about number 12. The girl was skilled, but Naomi was relentless, chasing every ball like her life depended on it, encouraging teammates, celebrating small victories. In the second half, she scored off a corner kick that bent perfectly into the top corner of the net. Her team mobbed her. She searched the sideline until she found Marcus, then held up both hands in triumph. He was already on his feet, cheering. When he sat back down, he noticed Victoria wiping her eyes. You okay? he asked quietly. She's wonderful, Victoria whispered. You made that confidence, that joy. You created that. We're still figuring it out every day, Marcus admitted. Some nights she has nightmares about her mom leaving. Some days she asks questions I don't know how to answer. But we show up. That's the main thing. After the game, a 3-2 victory, Naomi bounded over, sweaty and triumphant. Did you see my goal? Did you see it? I saw it, Victoria said. You made it look easy. It wasn't easy. Number 12 is really fast. Naomi flopped onto the grass. But I practiced. Dad says practice is what makes you good, not just talent. Your dad is very wise. Naomi rolled onto her back, looking up at them. Are you guys friends now? The question hung in the autumn air. Marcus glanced at Victoria. I think so, Victoria said slowly. Though I haven't had many friends before, so I'm not completely sure what it's supposed to feel like. Naomi sat up. It feels like when someone sees you being silly and they don't make fun of you. It feels like they remember what kind of snacks you like. It feels like you can tell them true things and they don't leave. She picked at the grass. That's what Daddy says, anyway. Then, yes, Victoria said softly. Naomi beamed. Then she turned to Marcus. Can Victoria come for ice cream? Please? You said she needs more ice cream. Marcus looked at Victoria. You busy? I had a meeting at noon, but... Victoria checked her phone, then turned it off completely. I think it can wait. They went to the ice cream shop 3 blocks from Marcus's apartment. Naomi ordered chocolate with gummy bears. Marcus got coffee. Victoria stared at the menu for 3 full minutes before choosing vanilla with caramel sauce. You can get something more exciting, Marcus said. They have 47 flavors. I don't think I know how to be exciting anymore, Victoria admitted. Vanilla feels safe. Naomi reached across the table and patted her hand. That's okay. Sometimes safe is good. When my mom left, Daddy only made me mac and cheese for like 2 months because it was the only thing I would eat. Safe helped. Victoria looked at this 8-year-old girl who somehow understood complex emotional truths better than most adults. You're right, she said. Safe helps. They finished their ice cream. Naomi talked about school, her best friend's hamster, and a book she was reading about dragons. Victoria listened like each word mattered. When they walked back to the parking lot, Naomi hugged Victoria goodbye fierce and quick, then ran to wait by Marcus's car. Thank you for today, Victoria said. Thank Naomi. She's the one who invited you. No. Thank you. Victoria's voice was firm. For showing me what this looks like. Family. Connection. The things that actually matter. She paused. Daddy says you're smart, but you don't know how to be happy. That's what she said about me to you, wasn't it? Marcus nodded. Victoria laughed a real laugh, surprised and genuine. She's 8 years old and she already sees through everyone's bullshit. That's my girl. You're lucky. I know, Marcus said. Every single day. Victoria drove away. In the rearview mirror, Marcus saw her smiling. The monthly dinners became a thing. Not a tradition yet that would take time, but a thing that Marcus, Naomi, and Victoria all came to expect and, surprisingly, look forward to. October. Pizza and a horror movie that Naomi insisted she was brave enough to watch, but spent half of it hiding behind Marcus's shoulder. Victoria laughed every time Naomi shrieked, and after a while, she started shrieking too. The 3 of them ended up watching the rest of the movie with a blanket fort and the lights on. November. Thanksgiving dinner at Marcus's apartment. Victoria brought wine and showed up 2 hours early. I didn't know what time dinner actually starts, she admitted, so she stayed and helped Marcus cook, following his instructions like he was teaching her a complex algorithm. When Naomi said grace before the meal, thanking God for Daddy, our friends, and people who are learning to be happy, Victoria had to excuse herself to the bathroom. December. Ice skating at Millennium Park. Victoria hadn't skated since childhood. She fell 7 times. Naomi taught her how to balance, speaking with the patient authority of someone who'd been skating since she was 5. By the end, Victoria could make it around the rink without holding the wall. She called it her greatest accomplishment of the year. January. Naomi's birthday. A small party at Marcus's apartment with her school friends. Victoria arrived with an enormous present, a telescope Naomi had mentioned wanting once in passing 3 months earlier, when Naomi hugged her and said, "You remembered." Victoria's expression suggested that remembering small things was a skill she was relearning. The dinners weren't the only change. At work, Victoria started leaving at 6 p.m. most nights. She stopped sending emails after 8 p.m. She began asking her team about their lives, their families, their interests beyond their job titles. The transformation was slow and imperfect. She still had moments of sharp criticism, still struggled with control, but the trajectory was clear. She was trying. Marcus saw her trying. So did everyone else. In February, they started meeting for coffee on Saturday mornings, not at Victoria's penthouse or Marcus's apartment, but at a cafe halfway between. Neutral ground where they could talk about things that had nothing to do with work. One Saturday, Victoria brought a photo album. "My therapist suggested I look through these," she said, opening to a picture of a young Victoria, maybe 7 years old, covered in paint, laughing at the camera. "I'd forgotten I used to paint, used to make a mess, used to be capable of joy that didn't require an agenda." "What happened?" Marcus asked gently. "My mother got sick when I was 16. Cancer. It took 3 years." Victoria turned pages slowly. "I became the adult in the room, managed her care, kept her business running, learned to compartmentalize everything messy and inconvenient. By the time she died, I'd forgotten how to be anything except competent. That's a lot to carry at 19. It was. But I told myself it made me strong, made me capable of building something that mattered." She stopped at a photo of her mother at her college graduation. "Turns out it just made me lonely." Marcus studied the photograph. "She's proud of you in this picture." She was, even when I didn't deserve it. Victoria closed the album. "I'm trying to become someone who would make her proud now. Not because of the company, because of who I am when nobody's watching. How's that going?" Victoria smiled. "I went to a pottery class last week, made the ugliest bowl you've ever seen. The instructor said it had character. I think that's code for structurally unsound. But you finished it?" "I finished it. Took it home. Put fruit in it." She laughed. "It's deeply imperfect and I kind of love it. Sounds like progress to me." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the February snow begin to fall outside the window. "Can I ask you something?" Victoria said finally. "Sure. When you helped me that night, when you answered Richard's call, were you afraid?" Marcus considered the question. "Terrified. I thought I was about to lose my job, thought maybe I was being manipulated, thought I was making a choice I'd regret, but you did it anyway. I did it anyway." Marcus met her eyes. "Because sometimes the right thing and the safe thing aren't the same thing, and you have to decide which one matters more. I'm glad you chose right." "Me too." By March, they'd fallen into an easy friendship that surprised them both. Marcus found himself texting Victoria articles he thought she'd find interesting. Victoria started sending Naomi book recommendations. The boundaries between employer-employee and something more human had blurred into something neither of them had names for yet. It was Naomi who named it first. "Victoria's like family now, right?" she asked one night while Marcus tucked her into bed. "What makes you say that?" "Because she's always around, and she knows our routines. And when she talks about us, she says we instead of you guys." Naomi pulled her blanket up. "Plus, she looks at you the way you look at her." Marcus's heart skipped. "How do I look at her? Like she's important. Like you want to make sure she's okay." Naomi yawned. "Like maybe you like her." "She's my friend," Marcus said carefully. "Friends can like each other, Daddy. That's allowed." After Naomi fell asleep, Marcus stood in the hallway, thinking about 8-year-old wisdom and the way Victoria laughed now easier, more often, like someone remembering how. He thought about the walls that had come down, about pottery classes and ice skating, about a woman who'd been hollow, learning how to be whole. He thought about whether he was ready for whatever came next. 1 year and 2 months after Marcus answered a 2 a.m. call, Victoria invited them to dinner at her penthouse. "I'm cooking," she said. "Fair warning, I'm not good at it. But I'm trying." The apartment had changed. Books on the coffee table, mysteries and memoirs, and a children's book Naomi had recommended. Photos on the walls, some from the album, new ones of Saturday mornings and birthday parties. A ceramic bowl holding apples, lopsided and perfect. The place looked lived in, like someone had finally moved in. Dinner was pasta slightly overcooked with salad and bread that Victoria admitted she'd bought from the bakery downstairs. "The bread I tried to make looked like a brick," she confessed. "Even I have limits." They ate on the couch instead of the formal dining table. Naomi sprawled on the floor with her plate, telling them about her science project on constellations. Victoria listened with genuine interest, asking questions that made Naomi's face light up. After dinner, Naomi fell asleep watching a movie, curled against Victoria's side like it was the most natural thing in the world. Marcus carefully lifted his daughter. "I should get her home." "Or," Victoria said quietly, "you could stay. I have a guest room. She's comfortable." Marcus looked at Naomi's peaceful face, at Victoria, whose expression held something careful and hopeful. "Okay," he said. He carried Naomi to the guest room, tucked her in, and returned to find Victoria on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. "This view used to make me feel powerful," she said as he joined her. "Now it just makes me feel lucky." "Lucky how?" "Lucky that you answered when I called. Lucky that you gave me a second chance I didn't deserve. Lucky that somehow, impossibly, I found my way back to being human." She turned to face him. "Lucky that I got to know you." The words hung in the cold spring air between them. "Victoria, I know what you're going to say," she interrupted. "That I'm your boss. That there's a power dynamic. That this is complicated. You'd be right about all of it. That's not what I was going to say." She blinked. "It's not? I was going to say that I never expected this." Marcus gestured between them. "Any of this. A year ago, you were the person who made my life difficult. Now you're the person who shows up to Naomi's soccer games, who sends her books, who's become part of our lives in a way I can't imagine undoing. Is that good or bad?" "It's terrifying," Marcus admitted, "because I've spent 3 years keeping you at a distance. And now, that distance is gone, and I don't know what to do with that." Victoria stepped closer. "I'm terrified too, because I'm not good at this, at letting people in, at being vulnerable, at wanting something that isn't related to quarterly earnings or market share." "What do you want?" Marcus asked softly. "This. You. Naomi. Saturday mornings and pizza nights and feeling like I finally found the family I gave up looking for." Her voice wavered. "But I won't risk what we have if you're not ready. Our friendship matters too much." Marcus thought about the past year. About watching Victoria transform from the woman who'd made him rewrite proposals at midnight to the woman who bought telescopes for 8-year-olds. About the nights she'd called him just to talk. About the way Naomi lit up when Victoria arrived. About the way his heart had started to feel fuller, like a room that had been dark was slowly filling with light. "I'm scared," he said honestly. "I'm scared of messing this up, of Naomi getting hurt if things don't work, of crossing a line we can't uncross. So am I. But I'm more scared of walking away from something that feels right just because it's not what I expected." Marcus reached for her hand. "So, maybe we figure it out together? Slowly, carefully, with a lot of communication and probably some mistakes along the way." Victoria's fingers closed around his. "That sounds remarkably sensible. I have my moments. They stood like that for a while, holding hands on a balcony 30 floors above a city that never slept, both of them aware that they were crossing a threshold into something unnamed and uncertain. "I should tell you something," Victoria said, eventually. "I've already talked to HR, put in a formal request to transfer you to a different reporting structure. You'd still be senior creative director, still have your team, but someone else would be your direct manager. You're that sure about this?" "I'm that sure I want the option of this, even if we decide to stay friends, even if nothing changes." She squeezed his hand. "I don't want power dynamics hanging over whatever we are to each other." Marcus pulled her close, and Victoria let herself be held, maybe for the first time in 15 years. She let herself be held without armor or agenda. "We'll figure it out," Marcus said, into her hair. Together, Victoria agreed. Inside, through the window, they could see Naomi sprawled across the guest bed, one arm hanging off the side, deeply asleep in that way only children can manage. "She's going to be insufferable about this," Marcus said. "She predicted it months ago. She's wise beyond her years. That's what terrifies me most." They went back inside. Marcus checked on Naomi one more time, then joined Victoria on the couch. They talked until 3 a.m. About fears and hopes, about what came next, about how to build something real and lasting from the fragments of who they'd been when they first met. At some point, they fell asleep, tangled together, Victoria's head on Marcus's shoulder, his arm around her waist. That's how Naomi found them in the morning. She stood in the doorway, studying them with the analytical gaze of someone who'd called this exact scenario months ago. Then she tiptoed to the kitchen, found cereal and bowls, and made breakfast. When Marcus woke up an hour later, Naomi was sitting cross-legged on the floor, eating Cheerios and watching cartoons with the volume low. "Morning, Daddy," she said without looking away from the screen. "I made breakfast. Victoria's still sleeping. You should probably let her sleep because she looks happy." Marcus's heart swelled. "How did I get such a smart kid? Genes, probably. And you're a good teacher." Naomi glanced back at him. "Are you happy?" "Yeah, sweetheart. I'm really happy." "Good. That's what I told Victoria she needed." "I'm glad you're helping her find it." "I think she's helping me find it too." Naomi nodded sagely. "That's how it works best, when people help each other." The wedding was small. Just close friends, Naomi's soccer team, and a handful of colleagues who'd watched the transformation unfold. They held it in the community garden 2 blocks from Marcus's apartment, now their apartment. Victoria had insisted on keeping it simple, meaningful, rooted in the neighborhood that had become her home. Naomi was the ring-bearer. She took the job very seriously, carrying the pillow down the aisle with the kind of focus usually reserved for championship soccer matches. When Victoria appeared at the end of the aisle, Marcus felt his breath catch. She wore a simple white dress, her hair down, no armor. Just Victoria, just the woman who'd learned to be happy. The ceremony was brief. They'd written their own vows. Marcus went first. "1 year ago, I answered a phone call I didn't want to take. I showed up for someone who hadn't earned it. And somehow, impossibly, that decision led me here. To you, to us, to a family I never saw coming but can't imagine living without. You taught me that change is possible, that people deserve second chances, that kindness isn't weakness, it's the strongest choice we make." Victoria's turn. Her voice shook only slightly. "1 year ago, I hit bottom. Called a man I'd treated terribly and asked for help I didn't deserve. You came anyway. You saw past the armor to the broken person underneath. You offered friendship when you could have walked away. You showed me what it means to show up, not just for the easy moments, but for all of them. You gave me back my humanity. And then, you gave me your heart. I will spend every day earning that gift." When the officiant said, "You may kiss," Naomi hollered, finally, from the front row, and everyone laughed. The reception was potluck in the garden. Mrs. Chen brought her famous dumplings. The neighbors contributed dishes from a dozen countries. Someone set up speakers, and Naomi immediately commandeered the playlist. As the sun set, Marcus and Victoria danced under string lights while Naomi orchestrated an elaborate game of tag with the other kids. "Did you ever imagine this?" Victoria asked, her head on Marcus's shoulder. "Not once," Marcus admitted. "A year ago, I was just trying to survive. To give Naomi a good life, to keep my head down and make it work. And now? Now I have everything I never knew I needed." He pulled back to look at her. "How about you? Any regrets?" Victoria glanced around the garden at the mismatched decorations, the children running wild, the neighbors who'd become family, at Naomi, who'd just scored a goal in an impromptu soccer game and was celebrating with her usual enthusiasm. "Not a single one," she said. "This is better than anything I could have planned." They danced until Naomi dragged them both into the soccer game. They played until it was too dark to see the ball. They laughed until Marcus's sides hurt. Later, after the guests had left and Naomi had fallen asleep in the car on the way home, Marcus carried his daughter upstairs while Victoria grabbed the leftover cake. They tucked Naomi in together, a routine they'd perfected over the past year. She stirred just enough to mumble, "Love you guys," before burrowing deeper under her blankets. In their own room, Victoria kicked off her shoes and collapsed on the bed with a satisfied groan. "That was perfect," she said. "It was pretty great," Marcus agreed, lying down beside her. "I can't believe I almost missed this. All of this." Victoria turned to face him. "If you hadn't answered that call, but I did. Why? Really? After everything." Marcus thought about it, about the man he'd been a year ago, exhausted and resentful, but still fundamentally decent. About the choice he'd made at 2 a.m., to be kind when kindness wasn't required, because Naomi was watching, because my father taught me to help people, because it was the right thing to do. He pulled Victoria close, and because somewhere deep down, I think I knew you needed someone to see past the walls, to believe you could be more than what you'd become. I'm glad it was you. Me too. They lay there in the dark, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way, building a family from broken pieces and second chances. On the dresser, Naomi's latest drawing was taped to the mirror. 3 stick figures holding hands, labeled Daddy, Victoria, and me. Above them, in careful letters, she'd written my family. It wasn't perfect. The proportions were wrong. The colors didn't quite match, and one of Victoria's arms was significantly longer than the other, but it was real, and honest, and full of love, just like them.